I can't believe we just played over 130 hours of Monster Hunter Stories 3. Welcome in, Riders and Hunters. I'm Rin, and thanks to Capcom, I was given early access to the full version of this game, so I could share my thoughts with all of you. We're going to do an unscripted video because frankly, it's 3 in the morning at the time of this recording, and I really want to talk about Monster Hunter. This review is going to be mostly spoiler-free. I'm going to talk about some monsters, weapons, and armor that you'll see later in the game, but as far as story element goes, you're good. Alright, so let's get the TLDR out of the way. The story is really good. A calamity is swept through the lands, crystallizing monsters and turning them feral. You play as the Prince or Princess of Azuria, and Captain of the Rangers, a group of monster riders tasked with habit restoration in the areas. You and your crew take it upon yourselves to find out what has caused this calamity and how to avert disaster. And of course, it wouldn't be a stories game if your main character didn't have a Rathalos named Ratha. The world is massive, and exploration feels really in-depth. You'll be visiting areas like the Kingdom of Azuria, the lush Canalta Timberland, the deserts of Tarkawan, and the frozen yet beautiful Serathis. Words alone don't do it justice. I can't wait for you to dive in and get a feel for yourselves. Now I know what you're thinking. It's a monster taming game. How do we tame the monsters? Well, that's where habitat restoration comes into play. You'll find eggs in dens scattered throughout the land, and you'll hatch them at the stables. Each locale has subregions that specialize in a specific element. As you can surmise, the lake may be water type, a cave may be ice type. As you explore, you'll find out. As you raise a monstie's ecosystem level, it will gain access to unique abilities depending on the rarity of the monster and the element of the region. This will recolor monsters, and while it might be a little weird to have like a blue-pink Rathian, you can raise your favorite monsters in an element's area to get that color, and then transfer abilities over to it using the Rite of channeling. So don't worry if you start out with a type you don't like. You could raise a new one later and move everything over. One of the things that Monster Hunter Stories does best is allows you to use your actual favorite monsties without sacrificing power or meta. Monster Hunter Stories 3 does monsties really well. So let's talk about what the game did well, what it did okay, and what it did poorly. The combat and strategizing are good. Fans of the mainline Monster Hunter games are going to be at a good advantage here, because more often than not, monsters are going to do what you think they're going to do, which helps with type advantage. And with good strategy, you can even take on monsters much higher level than your own. For example, maybe you're a level 10 and you just defeated a level 75. Totally possible in this game. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. Also, as you're making new monsters, they're going to start with lower levels, but because the battles can go by pretty quickly, you can easily raise their levels up in just a few battles. So don't be afraid to try different monsters out as you go through the game. Now, while I really enjoy combat, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Some weapons are just way too strong. Like, I think the greatsword kind of sucks. It doesn't really do that much damage, and you have to spend turns charging it. And in the time you would spend charging, you'd just be doing the same amount or more damage with other weapons. And I get it, greatsword's always been kind of like, boring big hits, but when the big hits aren't really outweighing the hits you're doing with other weapons, it can feel like it falls off a bit. However, the other slashing weapon, the longsword, is pretty sweet. It's got 2 different stances it can use. One, a retaliation stance. This is a counterattack anytime the enemy attacks any of your people. The other is the lunge stance. Now this will unleash a follow-up attack anytime any of your guys attack. It's so sweet, and the attacks really start to stack up. You can also absorb your longsword's charge level to get more crit and stuff. Longsword's really cool. Now the blunt weapons are easily the most powerful weapons in the game, and here's why. In Monster Hunter Stories 3, they introduced the Wyvernfell Gauge. This is basically a stagger meter. Deplete the gauge, stagger the monster. Each time you take out a bar, you're going to exhaust the monster, it'll become exposed, or stall its attacks or make it so it's less accurate so it might miss you more often. And when it's completely drained, it'll topple over. When you deplete a full bar, you'll interrupt its turn. And when you topple the monster, you'll have 2 options, Synchro Rush or not Synchro Rush. If you choose to Synchro Rush, you'll deal a decent amount of damage and you'll fill the kinship gauge for both you and your ally. But hold on, if you don't Synchro Rush, the monster will stay on the ground, reeling around like an idiot, and give you a free turn. This free turn can be used to deal way more stun gauge, or a ton of damage, or use time to heal, or status afflictions. It's just the possibilities are so sweet, I couldn't possibly ever recommend using Synchro Rush. Who doesn't like free turns? You'll also deal bonus damage and bonus Wyvernfell Gauge while the enemy's on the ground, so you can almost chain stagger them. On that note, Hammer specializes in Wyvernfell damage. Whether it's dealing greater damage to monster parts, or doing AoE stuns, or increased Wyvernfell with each hit, Hammer's got you covered. It even has a counter. Hammer was my most played weapon through my entire play. But it's not the only blunt weapon. We also have the Hunting Horn. Hunting Horn is an amazing support weapon, and depending on the one you build, you may be buffing your offense or your defense, healing, or if you have a special Hunting Horn, even restoring hearts, which are your lives. Alright, Every battle you have 3 hearts. You share this heart with your monstie, and if you lose all 3 hearts, you lose the battle. If an ally loses 3 hearts, they go down for a couple turns and then come back. This is basically like 3 cards and you're out. Then we have the piercing weapons, the bow and the gun lance. The bow is paramount for me. I loved using blast bows. There's all sorts of coatings, paralysis, bleed, you name it. So use what works for you. The gun lance, on the other hand, is pretty situational. While it has excellent defensive capabilities and can even do a cheat death, the costs are pretty high and the situations are pretty varying. So you need the enemy to target you for certain defenses, but it's also very expensive to deal damage on the gun lance. So I found myself doing more damage with the other weapon types, and you don't have to have a piercing and a slashing and a blunt. I honestly just use a hammer, a hunting horn, and a bow. This is the meta setup in my opinion, since the hammer offers a ton of stun gauge, the hunting horn offers a ton of utility, and the bow can get blast procs or whatever else you may need. It even features a quick shot, which has a very strong chance of going first. And there were times that I wanted to use longsword, so I ended up swapping my bow out for the longsword. Hammer and hunting horn almost always stayed on me. Some challenging fights I did bring gun lance, but it was few and far between. But due to the nature of the new Wyvernfell Gauge system, I really think using whatever weapons take the most advantage of the stagger is the best chance you've got. Now, there are going to be enemies that you significantly outlevel. When it comes to these and you don't really want to grind them out, you have 2 options. One is an overworld defeat. If you use your tackle, you'll end the battle before it begins. The other is in-battle quick finish. I'm pretty sure you have to defeat a monster once before you can use these quick finishes. However, getting into combat, you can use a paintball turn 1 and then turn 2 hit the quick finish, and it increases the likelihood that they'll retreat. This is a really good way to target specific eggs. And that brings us on to the babies. The babies are so cute, and honestly they're a major selling point when it comes to me picking up a stories game. I just wish we could see them in their baby form way more often. Checking out the egg and figuring out which one's gonna be next, it's so much fun. That's the little baby, you're so cute. Honestly, more than half of my gameplay was hunting down eggs, hatching them, and raising their ecosystem level. For better or worse, it's easy to lose so much time to this. So when it comes to babies, you'll have to acquire their eggs from dens. If you remember the dens from 2, they've basically been reworked. You walk in and you'll pretty much see the nest right in front of you. Go over, pick up an egg, and then head on out. There could be different events inside these dens as well, like maybe there's double nests, or cats wearing barrels running around, or maybe you'll even see the monster whose den it is on alert walking around. These events will proc more often at night, and honestly, you have a better chance of rarer stuff at night, so I recommend going into dens in the nighttime when you can. But it's not all good. Remember earlier when we talked about the habitat restoration and raising the ecosystem levels to get better eggs? Well, at first you're going to have 5 monsters to choose from. This means you have a 20% chance per egg to actually get the one you want. As you introduce monsters to an ecosystem, it may be the only way that you unlock their subspecies, or maybe you want a certain element. You can have up to 10 monsties, 5 natural, and then 5 that have been introduced. Now, this means that every time you introduce one, your percent chance of getting the one you want goes down. So maybe if I'm going after the one I want, I only have a 10% chance. This kinda sucks. Because to the best of my knowledge, there is no way to kick a monster out of a habitat, so once you've introduced it, those rates are now permanently lowered. And while you can just do what I said earlier where you target specific egg and get them to retreat to the den, the problem is that some monsters don't have an overworld battle. So this means your only chance of getting those eggs are to find them randomly in the den. I wish there was a way to target specific eggs otherwise, like maybe you could spawn a den or something, or with a certain amount of time that passes or something, but it sucks that for some monsters, I finished grinding them to S in 5 minutes, and then some others, it took me half an hour. If I had one thing that I would ask the Monster Hunter team to improve on, it would be a way to target specific eggs. I'm thinking about Monster Hunter World and how when you went to the guiding lands, you could lure out specific monsters. It would be cool to have a system like that. So what I recommend to you is you're grinding up your areas, get all those base monsties to an S rank before you start introducing monsters to their habitat. I think you'll thank yourself in the long term. So dens, big quality of improvement, huge fan. Habitat restorations, which features unique skills and elements, that's pretty cool. With a reduced chance to get the egg you want, not so cool. When it comes to releasing monsters into your habitat restoration, you may choose to release one to a specific area so that you could fight it a little bit easier. Like maybe you're going to release a Plesioth to a land area so you can actually fight it on the land. Now when it comes to endangered monsters, they're going to need your help because invasive monsters have come into their region and hunted them to the base of extinction. This brings us to the 2 special types of monsters in Stories 3. Feral monsters, which are Arbigers of Doom, crystallized beasts which you have to overcome to restore the ecosystem and get a camp in that area, and invasive monsters. These dudes require serious strategy. With unique fighting patterns, how will you overcome their trials? I don't want to spoil all the fun. If you do conquer these baddies, you'll gain access to endangered species. I mean, who doesn't want a million Rathians running around? Later in the game, you'll also gain access to Excursions. Excursions are ways to enhance your MONSTIES by sending them to locales that you have visited. The skills they learn depends on the ecosystem rank that you'll have in the area you're sending them. Realistically, this feature only had one use for me, to raise Rathalos from a C rank to an S rank. And since Ratha is the only monster you can't remove from your party, I found that to be pretty valuable. We talked about weapons briefly, let's talk about the rest of combat. There are a few types of attacks you'll have to deal with when fighting monsters in Monster Hunter Stories 3. Head-to-head attacks, which is a rock, paper, scissors system, where green beats blue, blue beats red, and red beats green. Choose the right attack, and you'll send the monster reeling. These are denoted by yellow targeting lines. There are true attacks, red lines that you cannot head-to-head, so your options are to survive the attack, or CC the enemy before it can execute. If you see no targeting line, one of two things are happening. Either the attack is a raid-wide, and you need to prepare accordingly, or the enemy is targeting somebody who is not using a single target attack. And lastly, there are phase changes. Much like mainline Monster Hunter, enemies will go through certain phases. Whether they're enraged or powered up, their attack types and patterns will change, which means that maybe a speed attack is good in this head-to-head, but when it enrages, maybe now you want to use power. As you fight, the bond between Monstie and Rider will lead to a kinship attack. When you fill the kinship gauge, you can ride your Monstie. Afterwards, you can unleash a devastating attack, or while riding, you could still execute your Monstie's regular abilities. This really opens up two options. One, use that kinship attack. It will interrupt the enemy's turn and dismount you at the conclusion. Or you could stand your Monstie if you think you're about to be defeated, because taking lethal damage while riding only dismounts you. You don't even lose a heart. And finally, when you deplete the Wyvernfell Gauge completely, the enemy will be toppled and you'll be given the option to Synchro Rush or no Synchro Rush. If you Synchro Rush, fills your kinship gauge and does damage. No Synchro Rush, you get a free turn. When it comes to status ailments, Blast is king. It will deal percentage HP. There's also Poison and Burn, which are decent, but weaker. Bleed is like a charge on your next attack. It powers up the next attack the enemy receives. It was kind of weird, I didn't really interact with it. Sleep and Stun, very strong. Any way to interrupt the enemy is gorgeous. And Paralysis is okay. Para's not guaranteed to interrupt, but it lasts for multiple turns, unlike Sleep and Stun. And if you sleep at the start of the turn and somebody else attacks before the turn is over, the enemy's just awake anyways. There's also Darkness, Accuracy down, and Evasion down. They're all okay. Darkness and Accuracy down, way more useful than Evasion down. I didn't really care about missing because it didn't happen very often. So we talked the overworld, we talked babies, we talked combat. Let's talk a bit more about the Rite of Channeling. Rite of Channeling in a nutshell is moving your abilities from one monster to another. These can be your attacks or your passives. What makes it really OP is basically use whatever monster you want, right? And then as it opens up slots as it's leveling, just put the moves that you want into those slots from another monster. You could do it infinitely and there's no downside. As you match lines, you'll achieve bingos. These will enhance the attribute of the bingo. If you have 3 yellow lines, that's going to be lightning damage up. If you have 3 speed dudes, that's going to be speed attacks up. You get it. You also get bingo bonuses based on the number of lines you have. Every monster is going to have 2, 3, and 5. Depending on your Monstie, you may care or not. I focused more on the abilities that I was actually putting on my Monstie rather than the bingo bonus. For example, Brachydios can inflict blast, so I wanted inflict rate up, as well as stamina boost and faster kinship. It's also nice to have type coverage, so you may want to put speed and technical attacks on one guy, or power and speed and technical on another one, or single target and AoE, or crowd control on everyone. I like to have options, so I really spread my bases around. The bingo bonus was a nice touch. You'll also gain access to catalyst keys as you're playing the game. These grant you access to level locked skills early. The keys are somewhat limited or expensive, but don't worry about it, just use them if you want. In the end, the Rite of Channeling makes it so you can use any team of Monsties you want and accomplish your goals. You want to have 5 Chata and a Ratha? Go for it. Then there's gearing. No Monster Hunter is complete without armor and weapons. And yes, you gain access to layered armors the moment you make the lowest form of the armor. All armor and weapons feature different skill sets, so be sure to mix and match to find what works for you. As you max equipment out, you'll gain decorations unique to each armor and weapon. If you get a decoration you already possess, it will level that decoration up. That being said, here are my suggestions on how you can get OP early. With weapons, I suggest the Magia Charm Hunting Horn, the Gypsyros Hammer, and the Anjanath Bow. You'll pick up the recipe for the Hunting Horn in the first chapter of the game. For the Gypsyros Hammer, you're just gonna have to hunt some Gypsyros. Anjanath Bow, same thing but Anjanath. This one's a toughie because it's a higher level, but if you learn the pattern, you can get it down. The Hunting Horn's amazing because it features defense and evasion up, healing, and restoring a heart. I used this literally through the end of the game. In fact, I used all 3 of these through the end of the game. The Gypsyros Hammer has the lowest cost AoE stun in the game, and since the weapon has poison on it as well, you can get poison and stun procs. It's so strong. Then there's the Anjanath Bow. This bow has blast coating as well as quick shot. Quick shot will almost always move first, which means that if you have to eke out a little bit more stun gauge, you can get that attack in before the enemy. For armor choices, you'll get a quest for the Adele armor pretty early on. This is cool because it has item saver, but also a decoration slot, which is limited in early armor. Next up, if you can brave the level 40 monster, Brachydios is going to be a sick armor set to graft. This set features Tenacity, which is a one-time cheat death per battle, and Bombardier, which increased blast damage and explosives. And if you have the grave misfortune of meeting the calamitous elder dragon Namiel, their armor features stamina boost, starting stamina up, and a damage up at the cost of higher stamina. The tentacle armor is so freaking strong, let me tell you. And all you have to do is lose to Namiel 3 times. We're not going to talk about the elder dragon battles right now, so moving on. These are the MONSTIES I suggest early on. Multiple purple Gypsyros. They sport Tail Stun, an attack that does set damage with a high chance to stun and a high chance to go first. This is critical, because if you're up against an enemy that is significantly over-leveling you, you will still deal damage instead of just hitting for ones, in addition to the potential for a stun, as well as a decent amount of Wyvern Gauge. Next is Bishaten, with Fruit Frenzy. This attack is insane. With an extremely low stamina cost and extremely high power, it has the power to inflict poison, paralysis, and darkness. The downside is that it attacks random enemies. The upside, most encounters are single target. Next are Brachydios and Ajarikon. While they are higher level monsters that you will see later on in the game, you can meet a Brachy pretty early, and if you can get it to retreat, you can get its egg. These feature blast damage. Blast is so strong, I cannot recommend them enough. Ajarikon also sports an ability that allows you to detonate Blast if the enemy is afflicted. This is insane, because if Blast would proc 4 turns later, you can proc it right away. There are even interactions where you can bank on getting a Blast proc that turn and going before the Blast detonation, and then Blast detonating at the end of turn and doing a same turn detonation. It's so sick. On the note of Bombardier, MONSTIES can learn these too. When you're detonating Blast, you'll want to know how Bombardier interacts. The Bombardier passive buffs blast damage if it's on the Monstie that inflicted the blast, meaning the Monstie that detonates the blast doesn't matter. The damage is already predetermined. It also means that if you inflicted the blast, your Monstie having blast up doesn't matter either. In the end, I think the game's got pretty appropriate challenges. It takes a long time to fill out your Monstie decks, and I'm looking forward to see if there are title updates. Now you've made it all the way to the end of the video. Now I know you're asking, is Gammoth in the game? And I'm here to tell you that Goss Harag is in the game. Look at this guy. Thanks for watching, and again, a big thank you to Capcom for giving me the opportunity to cover this game for you all. And if there's anything you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. I'm Rin, and happy riding!